Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
Yes, we are. We're back pretty rapidly from the last one. Hopefully, we'll get back to a bit of a more regular Monday slot, but we're bang in the middle of the British. We just had the English. It's the beating heart of the snooker season right now, isn't it?
Beating heart. Yeah, that's a good way of starting. I like that. Yes, congratulations to Mark Allen, Phil. We say that quite a lot in snooker, although we haven't said it properly. He won the Saudi Invitational, but we haven't said it in terms of a proper main tour event for over 18 months since the Players' Championship in February 2024. But we're saying it again because he's won the English Open in Brentwood, and we will reflect on his success. That's the main part of this episode, isn't it? And we'll also talk about the tournament in general. Just to say, coming later, we'll have early news from the British Open in Cheltenham, and we'll also reflect on the new Matchroom documentary. But yeah, it's Mark Allen and the English Open that's our top priority. 12th ranking title for Allen. He won the title with a 9-8 win over Zhou Yuelong in the final. Back to you for an early word on that final. We're spoiled. I mean, I didn't realise it was the first ever. I mean, surprised really. First ever time we've seen three ranking events, finals in a row, go to deciders. We don't like hyperbole, do we, Phil? We don't like to talk up the game in any kind of hyped way, but we could have an epic season, couldn't we? Yeah, 3 months in, maximums galore, all these finals. We saw Saudi, Wuhan, both 10-9, now a 9-8. Our cup runneth over.
Yeah, it really does. That's what you want, isn't it? That's really what produces a classic final when it's really really close. It doesn't even have to go to a decider all the time, but they're the best ones, really, the most memorable. And to get three in a row, yeah, like you said, never happened before. And even the one bit, it wasn't a ranking event, but the big start of the season,
Mm.
Kyron winning Shanghai was really close as well, just one short of a decider. So yeah, it's brilliant stuff, and it's what you get in these longer format matches. The swings each way, at the end of that first session. Um, you wouldn't have expected it to go to a decider. Well, I won't say you. People may have thought other things, but I was not expecting it to go to a decider by any stretch. Alan was much the stronger player to be
Mm.
finishing that first session 6-2. Um, Joe was underwhelming, really, and he struggled in some finals before. Um, and I thought that was going to be, a relatively short evening session, but all the credit in the world to Joe for how he played in the evening. Alan made mistakes, of course, but Joe was very, very good. Um, and then that built to a brilliant climax. And Alan said his record in finals before the match in his little interview. I can't remember what it was, but it was very, very impressive. He's good. He's good in finals, and he's good under pressure. He showed all week. So yeah, no, it's a great game, and it was a great tournament all in all. Thoroughly enjoyable all the way through.
I think he might have seen won his last eight, hasn't he? I saw that line pop up. I mean, he's absolutely, yeah, prolific. It has to be said. Yeah, thought it would be an early night, Phil. Thought we'd be finished in time for Howard's Way at one time. I presume Howard's Way still is on the BBC on a Sunday night. Probably is. But it wasn't like that at all. As you say, the afternoon, I heard commentaries and they were saying at the end, 6-2 was about right for his dominance, and his good play. A 1-3-2 in the opener for Mark, and then further breaks of 72, 59, and 54. Zhao won the first of the evening, then Allen won the next. And when it's first to nine and not first to 10, he's getting close to the finish line. But then what a run from Zhao then. Hats off. 5 frames in a row, breaks of 50, 72, 60, and 53. Then Allen held his nerve with a 71, and that was a hell of a frame, actually. That was a saga. That frame 16 was brilliant, wasn't it? Basically, Zhao needed the snooker and got it. He had a couple more. That was the moment of the match when Allen had to get out of the snooker and hit the green. He actually got a bit of luck the way it eventually. I think he may have also canned with the blue. That felt like a massive moment. He got that frame 8-all, and then on a help of a break of 61, he won the decider, and he was always the dominant force in the decider. But let's just say it, Phil, and we must have a word about Zhao in a couple of moments. Actually, you had to feel so gutted for him. But what a week of escapes from Mark. Never mind the great escape. It was the great escapes plural. That man has got tenacity. Just he's perfected it. We talk about Mark Selby, and we get my marks right here. We talk about Mark Selby needing to be scraped off the table time and time again. We should say it more for Alan. He's of the same milk, the same stock, doesn't know when he's beaten, and it doesn't it serve him well.
Oh, well, it did this week for sure, yeah. And it's a great credit to any player who can show that fight and determination. I think so, sometimes it's overplayed in some players because most professionals have it to some degree. You wouldn't be competing at the elite level, but he said himself he thinks he was in positions at some point in that week where he knows that the players that might have sort of given up at least, but he never does. And just to do it over and over again against such a good string of players as well, it wasn't sort of sometimes a significant underdog can get near the finishing line and sort of crumble a bit, and then the favourite, even though they're behind, they're so experienced, so strong, they'll come back. But he was beating like ridiculously good players over and over again. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's to his immense credit because he said himself, and I think this is right. He didn't play that well
no,
all the way through. Certainly spells. Obviously, you don't win a tournament without producing some good stuff. But it wasn't like he was. Blitzing people, and it's obviously because he kept losing loads of frames to people. But he was quite pleased with that afterwards. I think he said it was a good sign that if you're winning a tournament just mainly through your battling abilities, then when things click more, then you're going to be really hard to stop.
yeah. And there's a reason I ask players, and I've asked it on here before a couple of times in the summer. I think, how's your B game? Never mind your A game. I know how good that is because you're one of the best players in the world. But when you, and I think it was a bit of a B game week, really, at times,
Mm.
actually, and probably most of the time. But he's won the tournament, and yeah, I mean, I didn't hear him say that about. I didn't actually see the speech. I was busy doing other things. I was doing radio snooker actually for one thing last night. I didn't know he said that thing about he could think of. I can think of a lot of players that wouldn't have won. That's not being critical of them. That's human nature. That's the nature of sport. It takes all sorts, and that's why people like Mark Allen are at the top of the game because they don't give up. They've got that top level mental strength, and so much of this game's in their head. And he got it upstairs, and with Chris Henry now, and you know, who knows? Most of them have gone 18 months, 2 years, haven't they? Actually, if you think about it, most of them have. Maybe not Ronnie, although even Ronnie probably actually, but certainly Neil Robertson recently.
Mm.
Mark Selby, I always think about that one in Crawley I was at. That was after it. Didn't realise it had been so long. He had 18 months, 2 years, I think. Most of them will do that. Probably Murphy's done that 2 or 3 times, I think, and that's fine because they they come back and win stuff again. But it's interesting. I mean, Judd's been the exception actually, but maybe this might become his. We'll come to that. He obviously wasn't victorious again this week, but Zhou Yuelong, that's 4 ranking event final defeats now. One's in the shootout, so 3 proper ones. 2 of them to Mark Allen. I kind of forgotten
Yeah.
the second Northern Ireland one, but Allen's forgotten almost, isn't it? Because the first one was so amazing. He won that pretty
Yeah.
comfortably. But yeah, 2 out of 3 are the proper ranking event finals against Allen. But this is the most painful one yet. I think he's 27, isn't he? So loads and loads of snooker time left. And I did see some quotes actually written down from Mark from that speech, I think, where he said, he's sure his time will come. Well, I'm pretty sure his time will come, and I certainly hope it will. But there was no disguising that disappointment of with him last night, and nor should there be.
Mm.
But there was no sort of brave face. It was all written there, actually, on the face. It was just. I saw a couple of people actually on forums say they didn't feel like he did an awful lot wrong, and I'd go along with that. I didn't feel like he did an awful lot wrong either. He went 8-7 up, and Mark played 2 good frames there. Really, neither of those good breaks were match winners. Actually, frame
Mm.
winners in their own right. There was still a bit of life left in it, but I don't know if that would be your assessment. I didn't think he did an awful lot wrong. He just went so close. He'll learn from it, of course, all of the cliches we always say. But you just think let's just hope that ranking event final 5, 6, 7, and I'm sure it'll happen, will be the one that when he gets over the line, eh?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't think he was great in the first session, but then he made up for that, didn't he? To get ahead in the second session, then that's forgotten. But maybe if
Yeah.
he'd did a bit better early on, and it could have been different. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Alan played really well in those last 2 frames. There was one, and I forget whether it was a red or the black. Joe had one shot in that final frame right near the end where it was a tricky shot along the black cushion to sort of keep
Oh,
his hopes
he
alive.
played it terribly. It was
Yeah,
miles
he
off,
just
wasn't it?
completely messed it up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was. You don't often see shots missed by that much at that level. Um, and maybe that's what was annoying him right at the end, other than the whole situation, of course. But yeah, he did seem very disappointed. But um, yeah, it will be the most painful, but it's also the most encouraging because he obviously he got whitewashed in one final by Robertson, didn't he? Um, the
Oh,
final he lost to
yeah.
Allen, I think was 4-4, and then he lost five in a row. I think he actually lost
Oh,
more than five in a row to get to that. So this was easily the most competitive, and his fight back from being reasonably far behind after the first session should encourage him a lot. Obviously, it'd be very hard to take that after you've just been beaten, but it should be encouraging that he's not got an issue in finals because he got to within one frame of winning one. And obviously, a great week. I mean, the names he beat: Williams, Hawkins, Brissell, Selby, and then one frame away from beating Allen in the final. So, yeah, hopefully. I mean, he was already saying, I think by the end of that interview with Abby, he'd perked up a little bit, and he was saying he'll take confidence from it. But hopefully, already when he's at home, he'll be looking at the positives because yeah, superb effort. Just beaten by who is demonstrably a better player, has been a better player of his career, and he only just beat him. So yeah, no, it was a good effort and a great week.
yeah, very well summed up. Just to say, actually, quite rightly, things pop into your head that you don't always mean to say necessarily. But that moment with the red, I've had it pointed out a couple of times. I don't know if it's an excuse. He certainly didn't mention it. Noises off do happen at Snooker. There was a lot of noises off before that shot. I went back to look at it and thought, oh, was there? There was actually. There was a clicking of what seemed like snooker balls at some time. I'm not sure what that came from. There was other sort of noises off,
Oh.
like you get at a theatre. He backed away once, I think, and then it was just other noises. I don't know. It's true there were a lot of noises, and it's true he played a really bad shot. But whether they were actually connected, I don't know. But important to say, yeah, that was Last Chance Saloon. It reminded me a bit. I can't remember if I said it on Radio Snooker. That here's a line, Phil. I can't remember whether I said it on the air or just said it to myself. That's a bit worrying. I may have just said it to myself, but it did remind me of Trump in Saudi at that moment. I thought it'll
Mm,
be a similar clearance if he wins this. Very unlikely to do it in many ways.
mm.
That one he did against Williams. But anyway, I must stop waffling and come to something that I was obsessed with for a while. I haven't done for a while, but I think it's worth doing. Quickly look at the ranking event wins, Phil, because this is Mark Allen on 12 now. Ronnie O'Sullivan, 41. Stephen Hendry, 36. John Higgins, 33. Judd Trump, 30. Steve Davis, 28. Mark Williams, 26. Neil Robertson, 26. Mark Selby, 24. Ding Junhui, 15. Sean Murphy, 12. Mark Allen, 12. We know they were quite pally at one time, Sean and Mark. I think maybe less so now, but they're 12-12. So nice little narrative between those two. And that's, well, I say it's top 10. It's basically 11 there because the guys that are in the 10 position have both got 12. But this is the creme de la creme now. And that's what Mark Allen, where he is. I know you mentioned the world title. That's always going to come up. His record at the Crystal was underwhelming, but he'd suit one in that event, wouldn't he? He'd suit it. He'd sure suit it. You know, in a way, maybe not Kyron, but even maybe Kyron. You'd argue that Mark Allen is a more likely world champion than the last three, if you get my drift.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
He's won more than them. He's won more than
yeah.
Luca, Kyron, and Zhao Xingtong. So he would suit it. Whether he does it, we'll wait and see. He'll have a great career if he doesn't do it, of course. But boy, would he suit it. Last 16 then. Elliot Slessor 4, Judd Trump 3. Breaks of 67, 68, 79, and 64 from the Slessor. Judd's wait for a win goes on, but with the new cue, I'm sure he'll be back. He'll be back soon for sure. Zhou Yuelong 4, Barry Hawkins 2. Jackson Page 4, Sean Murphy 3. That's a bit like him, the guy that played well yesterday, isn't it? Sean was looking blistering early on in that tournament, but lost that one. Luca Bassell, this is the day I was there, actually. I'm just remembering quite a lot of detail from the matches in my head. Luca Bassell 4, Robbie Williams 3. And they quite a long went the distance of this round. Maybe you expect that in the best of 7. Mark Selby 4, Wu Yiza 2. I love seeing Wu Yiza again. I just looked, I thought, God, he's good to watch, that guy. He lost that one, but he's good to watch. Both players made 4 half centuries in that match. Well, Mark Allen 4, Ding Junhui 3. One of the many great escapes from Allen. 3-0 down, came back to win. Aaron Hill 4, Jack Lazowski 1, and Jack Jones 4, Ricky Walden 3. So yeah, word on that round. Elliot Slessor looking the part more and more. Top win for him. And yeah, Selby and Williams was a match I enjoyed. Maybe did the conditions complaints start now? Because when we were last on there weren't really condition complaints. I think they started on about that Thursday actually, and
Yeah.
they seem to decline, and things do decline with tables. A lot of it was in Mark Selby's view, and others, I think, as well, down to the building. He mentioned the swimming pool at one stage, but there's no doubt that a lot of those top players weren't entirely happy with the conditions in Brentwood.
Yeah. It was that Thursday night, wasn't it? Because Selby said it. He said it was really tough. I think cushions being unpredictable, it does bounce heavy with the cloth. And then his comments were sort of put to Mark Allen, and he was like, "Yes, I'm glad someone else has said it," because I think Mark Allen has suffered some fines for criticizing things. So he was just glad that someone else started it at least, even if he then agreed with it. And it was interesting. Yeah, I don't know what happened because then I hadn't noticed them being bad before that night, but then after that, there were a fair few um, complaints, but also the commentators pointing it out. And I think it takes a lot for the commentators really to be like, "Oh, that the players are really struggling here under these conditions," and that seems to have continued to continue after that. So yeah, not sure why that changed, but it did start from that evening. It seemed because we'd been saying when we were on the
Yeah,
podcast last
yeah,
week that this is why all the 147s have been going in because the
yeah.
conditions seemed great, no complaints, and then that changed pretty quickly. But yeah, it was that night. But I mean, it's good when winning players say that stuff, isn't it? Because you're always accused. Well, I mean, I don't think players ever make this up really, but if you're losing and you complain about conditions, you can look like you're chewing on some sour grapes. But if two players that winning saying it, then fair enough.
Yeah, I would say so, absolutely. Yeah, and we move on to the quarterfinals, Phil, and wow, Zhou Yuelong 5, Luca Bassel 4. I know a couple of people that were at that actually. It was a right old gritty affair, and well, credit to Zhao, breaks of 94-113 from 4-2 down to level at 4-4. And it was a right old mad long decider, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely pure. I mean, it sounds like you watched it pure. So I think I remember you tweeted about it. Absolute tight and nervy decider, which Zhao won. Well, Mark Selby 5, Jackson Page 4. That went all the way as well, breaking 1-3-1 of the decider from Selby. Jack Jones 5, Aaron Hill 2, and Mark Allen 5, Elliot Slessor 4-0. Allen 4-0 down. The Houdini act continued. Breaks of 55, 78, and a 59 to help him to that most dramatic of victories. So a sore one for Slessor. And Lucas obviously, you know, I know he's not feeling great and he has some health issues. We're sorry about that. And he made it quite clear it's a physical matter, actually,
Mm.
didn't he? He specifically made that point, actually. I'm not sure if that was since we were last on air, but he has said that. So he's struggling on there. Wish him well, of course. But his snooker's okay. But yeah, sounded that decider was one of those kind of couldn't take your eyes off it in a kind of not car crash way. That's too rude, but in a kind of gripping, tense way.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't know if this is the case, but it was one of those frames where you're playing safety from the black ball end, and they're just screwing back onto the black cushion, and all the reds go up the other end of the
Oh yeah,
table. So it just feels like as soon as anyone makes a mistake, then they've just got this wild table of reds to look at, but which is often sort of seems like they're going to clear up. They're often such unusual tables that isn't end like that, but. Those often seem to happen in deciders, in my mind. Anyway, maybe they don't, but it's that they make them very edgy and nervy.
it
And
does often
then,
that.
yeah,
You're right. It doesn't often happen in deciders. That's
yeah,
such
because
a good
people are
observation.
so cagey at the start of them, and odd things happen. But yeah, it was a classic decider in a way, like mistakes, but balls going in strange places, and you don't really see Luca seemingly struggling with the situational pressure much because he's such a cool customer. But maybe he did a little bit there, but he was unlucky really. I mean, it could have gone either way. But it was a great result for Joe. But yeah, nice to see Luca playing and getting results. He says he's been struggling with he doesn't know what really similar symptoms to what Ben Williston spoke to us on here about. I don't think he knows why really, but quite concerning. But he looked good at points here, and back in the quarterfinals. That's kind of place he belongs. So yeah, it was good to see him playing well again on what was a mad day of snooker. Really, I mean that it was like rolling on, wasn't it? So that afternoon session rolled right into the evening session. Then we had that mad 5-4 from 4-0 down for Allen. Yeah, it was carnage. Lots and lots of hours of snooker, and yeah, I hope Lester's not too down. I know he was very down after that Saudi semi against Robertson, wasn't he? I saw him posting about that and the way he spoke about that. Just so frustrated with how he performed. He wants to take that next step. I'm sure losing 5-4 from 4-0 up will in a quarter final not will not have improved his mood, but
Mhm.
he is proving to be so consistent this season in going deep and getting some good results. So don't despair would be my suggestion because he is going in the right direction, even though might not feel like it all the time.
Yeah, consistent's the right word for him. He's having a very, very consistent season, Elliot Slessor. Well, semi-finals, Zhou Yuelong 6, Mark Selby 3. That was a marathon affair. One of those where you do it. You do. This happens in quite a lot of those longer sports. I seem to do an awful lot of things on that Saturday while that match was still going on, and it was a really long one. But a marathon affair, 6 hour centuries from Zhou. He won it 6-3 against Selby. A very good win. And Mark Allen 6, Jack Jones 5. That was the match on the Saturday night, the second semi. Well, Allen was 5-3 down. I mean, what a trend. He just continued. Made breaks of 68, 67, and 82 to win it. So again, a little bit like the final with Zhou Yuelong. I'm not sure Jack Jones did an awful lot wrong towards the end, really. I mean, just very good for Allen to win it. Obviously, we were left with the final, which we talked about. Mark Allen 9, Zhou Yuelong 8. So it's one of those, we say it time. I mean, Zhou Yuelong is not a regular ranking event finalist by any means, but he's been there. Mark Allen's been there, done it, wore the t-shirt and everything else. So it's kind of the way it works. No matter how many little funny moments you get towards the end, it tends to be those sort of top players type thing. But a good tournament,
Mm.
enjoyable. As you say that, I think there's a reason why nearly every snooker podcast records on a Monday because no reason, doesn't really reflect on us. It's good that narratives change in tournaments. We love that as journalists and as fans. But you're right. It was like I was very aware of that when we came on air last time. We were talking about conditions, 2 147s. Everyone was enjoying themselves in terms of what the actual arena was like. And then it kind of all changed a bit, didn't it? It got heavier. It got harder. The conditions declined, and scoring was harder work towards the end. But we still saw some good scoring and some good play. And yeah, just a really, really good winner, Phil. I mean, maybe actually more for you on the sort of playing side of matters, and then we'll talk Brentwood for the last time in a while. Okay, I'm I'm all Brentwood down.
Well, I think it was just nice to see some. We mentioned Luca there, but not just Luca going deep. It was nice to see Jack Jones back in the business end of a competition because he's one of the more unusual players on tour, isn't he? A World Championship final.
Yeah.
Um, hadn't done loads since that at all, really. But he did a nice interview with World Snooker. He said the birth of his son has changed his life as it would do to anyone. But he's feeling very more. His attitude to Super's changed a bit. He's enjoying it more, enjoying practice more. Um, and he played very well, and that would be a very annoying loss from there because he was in a great position. But even in the semi, he played really good. So yeah, I hope to see him doing well again because what him on here was a well, I don't know, it's one of my favourites, but a very enjoyable one on here. I think because when he did that World Championship final run. I don't think we as the media got too much out of him. Really, he was quite a
Mm.
sort of still remains slightly aloof and mysterious. But he's a good guy, and I enjoyed chatting to him on here when he came on. So glad to see him doing well, and also Aaron Hill
Yeah.
continuing his great season. So yeah, nice to see. And yeah, it just seemed like there was a lot of drama all the way through. Played in front of a good crowd. As you said, like the tournament seemed to change at that last 16 point into a slightly different vibe about it, but no less entertaining as we carried on getting all those decided. So, no, another good addition from a home nations event.
Very much so, very much so, and yeah, that I couldn't agree more on both Jack Jones and Aaron Hill. And yeah, please do listen to Jack. He was on with us, part of our very extensive back catalogue. And Phil Brentwood, well, it's a pain, really. I don't think they'll put that on the poster for next year. Nick Metcalf, it's a pain, really. I mean, that's not exactly a. I had to get an Uber there and back. People are like, well, drive, mate. But I just can't drive, you know. I had a go many, many years ago. It's not for me. I'm a Rattler man. And again, it costs, it costs money. I mean, I'm saying, Phil, a short list here of things that probably don't exist, okay? The Loch Ness Monster, the Beast of Bodmin, and the Bust of Brentwood. I don't think anyone's ever properly seen those. What a face you had there! A mixture of you sort of half found it amusing and a bit of despair there. I like that. Look, what I'll say is this: many fans will have filtered in, seen some great snooker, and for not a lot of money, very good value, and sort of enjoy them still. I know that because I spoke to them, and there are people that said, "Oh, I think this place gets a bit of a hard time, actually." But there are an awful lot of people that don't think that, and don't think the conditions are really up to much. And I mean, round the back, is really bad for a sporting event. I mean, it is damp from the swimming pool. That is incontrovertible. That is unchallengeable view from Mark Selby. It just is, and it's quite close. There's 3 or 4 walls separating perhaps, but the swimming pool and the surrounds of the swimming pool is close enough to where they're playing snooker at the English Open for it to be a factor. That's true. But yeah, I mean, that awful modern phrase, "it is what it is." I mean, that's just, I suppose, the way to sum it up. Really, it is what it is. It is what it is. I didn't have the best night there. Actually, it wasn't just to do with the venue, although partly it was. Even when I got back to the station, that's not Brentwood's fault. Loads of delays and an awful lot of angry people at the station. The wise people have said to me, it's quite an angry country, isn't it? The UK. I don't want to go back into LBC territory again, but um, and I sort of thought, yeah, maybe it is, maybe more than I realise. I mean, I tend to walk around having a great laugh in life a lot of the time, but maybe there is more anger around. I certainly caught some of that at the station that night, that's for sure. But anyway, I know you weren't there this year, but Brentwood, you've been before. It's a mixed bag, and I think we'll come back into it more with the Matchroom documentary. It's sort of a a hard place to love in many ways, but they get it for now. I mean, maybe that's the way to sum it up. They get it for now.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think anyone sort of pretends. I mean, the pluses are the tickets are cheap. Still, most thing like you described, you can go and watch a load of really good snooker for not very much money. Um, and people do. There's more people there than in a lot of other tournaments on the circuit, which are played in better looking arenas around the world. Um, but yeah, so I suppose it's what can we do? What you would hope that the sport can produce better things than that, and still keep ticket prices relatively cheap. But it's almost be careful what you wish for. I think you mentioned at the last one there was a new arena being built in another part of Essex, Basildon or
I
somewhere.
think it's Basildon. Yeah,
Yeah, and I read about that briefly, and it's sort of there's a bit of uproar about that because I think it's like someone on the local council really wants to do it and spend heaps of money on doing it, and that is not a universally agreed with position. Um, so you wonder if someone did do that, how much they would then charge Will Snooker to use it, and how much that it would then cost people to go and see it. So you'd be in a lovely new arena, but there'd be downsides too. But that doesn't mean I'm sort of campaigning to stay at naff leisure centres. Hopefully there's a happy medium, but um, that is one plus that it is sort of cheap and cheerful, but maybe it's not cheerful enough. Maybe it should be more cheerful. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It sort of is what it is, and no one even tries to defend it. We said this last time, even Barry Hearn, who's the one who sorted it out. That's why it's there, really. That Matchroom based in Brentwood, that's come up with that. He's basically the mayor of Brentwood, isn't he? And even he was sort of taking the mick out of it, saying that kids are walking around soaking wet in their armbands. So I suppose it's just a case of what snooker wants to how much snooker wants to sort of be penny pinching, and how much it wants to say, look, we're better than this, and we should go and find somewhere else. And at the minute, I suppose we're not better than this, which tells its own story.
When we started tonight, you said to me, I'm in a different room, sort of different surrounds. And I said, Phil, your words of snooker wisdom will always be the same, whatever room you're in. And that's another good example of that. Great stuff from you. We've done half an hour. That's almost what we were kind of aiming for, I think. So we must be doing something right. And let's talk British Open, shall we? That is underway in Cheltenham. And we'll do that after we say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haigh and Nick Metcalfe. The British Open is underway in Cheltenham. It's live here in the UK, free to air on ITV. That reminds me, happy 70th birthday on this very day to ITV. And if you'd like to have a look on Twitter and the ITV Memories page, there's loads of pictures, videos, and stories there. That became something of a pandemic project, I can tell you. And there's loads of special memories for you to look back at and enjoy. And also, sorry, I know it's UK centric. They've just put some amazing content on ITVX from across the 70 years of ITV history. The golden shots on there, for example, programs like 321, Poirot, the Up series, it's all there. But back to snooker, Phil. Now, shall I go? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
Why not? Why not now return to snooker? But that's there. It's a marvelous archive of content from ITV, and a very happy birthday to ITV. Done an awful lot, hasn't it? It's been a profound part of our lives, really. Some indelible memories it's left, no doubt. Some incredible programs over the generations, and that's the channel you can watch this week's British Open on then. And we're underway, Phil, and maybe we'll just have some day one results, shall we? And go to the video printer soon. We love doing that. Wu Yiza beat Pan Jung Soo 4-0. There was a 4-0 win for Barry Hawkins over Daniel Wells. And a 4-1 win for Mark Selby over David Grace, 3 half centuries from Selby in that match. John Higgins, Mark Davis went all the way. Higgins winning it 4-3. He was talking about a break, wasn't he, John? I think he may have changed his mind on it. He hasn't really had one. Ali Carter beat Patrick Whelan 4-2. Zhang Anda saw off Dwayne Jones 4-3. World champion Zhao Xintong, he squeaked through in a tight one, beat Ashley Hugill 4-3. Neil Robertson beat Alfie Davis 4-0. And Vidi Printer, Phil, we're just saying, just in the last few moments, Mark Williams has completed victory, hasn't he, over Joy here. I'll let you have the Vidi Printer, Joy, go on. He's won that 4-2 Williams. What else is going on this Monday night? Loads of top stars in action. We love this tournament, especially early on, because it really is a galaxy of stars.
It is, yeah. This first day, we mentioned it before, is great. I mean, I've got it on the telly. Judd Trump's about to go 2-0 up on Harron Hill in what looked like a really great first round match, but Trump's looking impressive. Zhao Guidong's ahead of Hayden Pinney 1-0. Kyron Wilson 2-1 up on Chris Wakelin, although that fourth frame looks tight. And Gary Wilson, Hossein Vafai, another lovely first rounder there. Wilson's 2-1 ahead on Hossein. So, yeah, I mean, it's the FA Cup style draw, isn't it? It throws up some crackers. You mentioned Williams against Sea there. That's a lovely opening rounder. And I watched some of that before. It was going really tight. Looked like it could go either way, and Williams looked powered for the line. I see, just still still young, isn't he? Compared to Williams, he's very young. But he made some sort of very careless. I mean, Hendry was on commentary, so I think he would have called it careless or clumsy safety shots, and that cost him frames. And it was very much sort of the wise old fox taking advantage of the still to mature but very talented youngster.
Yes, I have to say, it did cross my mind that Zhou Yuelong losing that final. We still haven't got the next first winner of a ranking event, and that's all still in play for us journalists that had a go. He was mine, so he's had a couple of promising matches and looked okay at times, but yeah, he's not quite delivered as much as I'd kind of hoped. I don't mean not expecting to win something by now, but he just always threatens to go deep without quite happening necessarily. But top player.
I think I had Wu Yiza, and he started with a 4-0 win, so he's still on course.
Very good, and as I say, mentioned earlier, what a lovely watchable player he is. He really is terrific to watch. That guy. You feel a tournament victory will not to be far away. And the crowds, we were just saying before we started recording, pretty good early on. You know,
Mm.
we often say, don't we? And it's true that not every, when we talk about the likes of Saudi and also some events in China and how empty they can be, well, so can events in the UK sometimes. But this last two haven't been. They've been very good,
Mm.
really. Again, sometimes it's congregated around the TV table. I will make that point. It's not always, the TV can play funny tricks when you see it live. Obviously I went to Brentwood, but even then, if you're really eagle-eyed, you think, well, actually, over there is not full. Even on the telly, you can see that. It is often TV table, but still, even that's good. A lot of people congregated around. And we say it time and time again. Doesn't matter if you're there or on the telly. Just thinking about it, if you're watching on the screen, it looks better, doesn't it? If more people are there, I mean, it's not off. It's not actually sometimes more important. You know, it's a very tangent, but for my job, I've been watching a bit more of the Asian Cup cricket than perhaps I normally would. That's taking place in United Arab Emirates, and apart from the India-Pakistan game, they're huge, giant stadiums with not a soul there. I mean, I'm
Mm.
talking about 10, 20 people in a stadium that holds thousands. So, sport sometimes isn't played in front of a lot of people for different circumstances and reasons. It's not a snooker thing, it's a sport thing. But when it does look good and it's full, it makes a difference, eh?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And yeah, there's really we don't want to get back into Saudi really, but there's reasons why, like you say, there's why things are more full or more empty, and there's reasons why that's more or less important in different factors. But in terms of casual viewers turning on some sport, that they're the kind of people you want to attract, don't you? People flicking through the channels. If they see a game of anything being played in front of a handful or no people, they're not going to be. It's not going to help draw them in at all, is it? It's not going to encourage them to think this is something worth watching. I had a message from a mate. I don't really follow tennis that closely, but he was saying that he was sort of slagging off the US Open for because up until near the end, their attendances aren't always great, certainly compared to Wimbledon when you watch it on there. And I think he's probably someone who only watches Wimbledon, so that's all he's got it to compare to. But he was just like, "Oh, the US Open's rubbish." It's like well, it's not, but that that can instruct people's opinions on tournaments if they're just casual viewers. So yeah, it's not a good look if it's empty, but it is a great look if it's full, especially something like this midweek, Monday afternoon. Load of people taking time off work to go and watch the opening round of the British Open. It's a good sign for snooker, isn't it?
It is. It is. And you hit on something interesting there that Wimbledon does get amazing crowds, even on the outside courts. And it always has done, really. Doesn't matter if it's court 18, whatever, court 14, a doubles match, it's full. That's a big, and that's not always necessarily the case at all in the other slams. So that's a real sort of, in many ways, a feather in Wimbledon's cap. But yeah, interesting views there. And have you got much more to say on the British for now? We'll, of course, be back on the air next time to review it all. Loads of great action to come. And I often forget the video printed thing when we do it once and want to do it later on, but I've got it written down, so hopefully we'll do a bit more of a look at that before we go off the air. But I think we're just looking forward to cracking action to come. I say it's on free to air in the UK, and again, Nostradamus couldn't call a winner, so we haven't got a chance. But it's going to be a smashing tournament day after day. I love the way the stories keep coming here, there, and everywhere, and the value for money people get, or just in television terms, star after star. It's short format, as we know, FA Cup style, and it just throws up an awful lot of stories, doesn't it? Judd will want to get a tournament on the board soon, won't he? He'll want to do that. Why not this week? You mentioned how he started well there. I'm going to put the mockers on him now. I know he's going to lose. He's starting okay anyway.
Yeah, he's looking good. And I saw his interview with Abby beforehand, and I don't think he's been past the quarter final in the British yet. Obviously, in this sort of revamped British, it's only been four editions so far, hasn't there? So it's not a great history that he's not got past the quarter final on, but he would like to improve on that, and he obviously could. Um, no surprise if he wins this, obviously. But yeah, no, a great looking tournament. We've always been big fans of the ITV team who do it. I mentioned me. I didn't really. She was doing the Home Nations, wasn't she? Doing the intros, and she must have hot-footed it straight to Cheltenham because she was on the opening session this afternoon doing the backstage interview. So that was a quick turnaround for her, and I'm sure a lot of other people who were working on both events. So fair play to those guys because that was a late finish in Brentwood. I know it's not furthest away distance to a snooker tournament to get to Cheltenham from Brentwood, but it's not round the corner. So fair play to everyone who's worked on both. Yeah, the only thing I would mention, I watched a fair amount of that Zhao Tong match earlier against Ashley Hugill, and I mean, it's high standards we're judging him by because he made a ton and a 80 odd in that. But yeah, he's not, he's not looking like the player that won the world championship. No one who watched him win that game 4-3 would be talking about him with the same sort of fear factor that people were in Sheffield and thinking he's going to just sweep aside all but sort of step in front of him for the rest of the season. Um, Still, obviously, an amazing player, but he's proved very beatable so far this season and continued to look so there, even though he did win. So yeah, interesting to see when he's going to really start firing. I think he did see it one. He won one game in the English 4-0 against, I think, against Ishpreet Singh Chardi, and he did look amazing, but then fell off completely the next game against Lisowski. So um, yeah, I don't know if there's anything behind it. He was never like the most consistent player, so it might just be continuing from that. But I think any notion that he was just going to become like this incredible dominant force from the World Championship, certainly not happening yet, anyway.
Yeah, no, fair way of saying it. And well, continue enjoying the British Open. As I say, when we're next on air, we'll review the tournament. We'll know who's won, and I'm sure there'll be an awful lot to talk about from events in Cheltenham. Well, Phil, let's move on to the Matchroom documentary, shall we? That's on Netflix and has actually been released, all the episodes in recent days. Well, I mean, I'm quite surprised by it in some ways, I have to say. I mean, what I would say overall about it was that it was very watchable, I have to say.
Mm.
And at times I found it compelling. I've seen a bit of, you know, I mean, people have all different views. Of course they do. Absolute whole myriad. People say, oh, they didn't find it entertaining or, you know, they didn't find it that watchable. I mean, I'd be surprised by any sports fans that didn't. We can quibble about things, and we will do. But in terms of, I found the content pretty compelling. I mean, okay, I'm obsessed by sport and love sport, but seeing those guys out in big fights in, America and what have you. I mean, I certainly thought it was compelling. That's in the bag. I watched it. Pretty much two viewings. I think they performed a bit too much for the cameras, and I've got to qualify that a bit, quantify it. People say, well, it's Eddie and Barry Hearn, what do you expect? No, it's not about that, because of course they're immensely charismatic characters, as were a lot of other people in it that work for Matchroom and are not involved with Matchroom, but connected in other ways, if you know what I mean. Don't work for the company. People like, well, Nigel Benn and his son, people like that are incredible people in sport. So all kinds of amazing, charismatic people were in it. But I still thought it was a bit too staged, almost, if I'm honest. Staged is maybe quite a loaded word, but I didn't feel it was as natural. And I watch a lot of sports documentaries. I'm watching Dallas Cowboys one at the moment, and I mean, this comparison is a bit stark, actually, between how real some of the things were. There weren't many difficult questions, if any, to answer, of course. That's another thing to say about it. But anyway, I'm conscious I don't want to go on too much. We're talking sort of sections about it, so maybe over to you. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what you think about that element of not always being as realistic as it could have been. But I suspect you found it compelling as a sports lover, didn't you? My goodness.
Yeah, no, I think I agree on all those fronts. I enjoyed watching it. Um, I think I just found those sort of documentaries where clearly the team have some sort of, well, I assume so, I very much assume so, have some sort of creative control over it. Um, and it's behind the scenes, but it's not behind closed doors, if I can make that distinction. They're letting them in to see things that you wouldn't normally see. But I don't think they're really letting you in to see anything that they don't wouldn't want you to see. If you see what I mean? It's all, they had to deal with losses in the boxing ring and whatever. There were blows to the company, but unavoidable ones that happen in sport. But I don't think there was much that would ever sort of paint anyone in a negative light or the company in a negative light. Which those sort of documentaries I can only really enjoy to a certain amount. Like in the way that you're describing it, it was very watchable, very compelling. But there's only ever so much you can learn if you're only getting really sort of, it's a promotional tool rather than a journalistic piece on it, if you see what I mean. Like you said, no
Hmm.
hard questions. There wasn't really anyone asking any questions. They were just sort of, you know, let Eddie, mainly Eddie and Barry, sort of advertise Matchroom. So yeah, entertaining. But, a bit like those what they call All or Nothing, the Amazon Football Club ones that they did on
Oh
City and
yeah.
Spurs and Arsenal. I liked watching them because it was interesting to see some things you don't normally see. But those football clubs aren't letting you see anything that they don't want you to see. So there's only so, in my mind, is the enjoyment can only reach a certain level. I'm sort of always left wanting a bit more.
You're absolutely right. I was thinking, I'd never particularly seen All or Nothing, but where was I? I think I was on a flight and I wasn't feeling well or something. I remember someone in front had it with subtitles, so I ended up seeing quite a lot of the City one actually on the recent flight. And actually, might have been one when I went to America. Actually, it was quite a long flight, and yeah, it was a valuable, good comparison there. Actually, it's great seeing Pep Guardiola behind the scenes and all the lads, and in the gym or whatever, or in the dressing room, loads of things. But yeah, there's no taxing questions. Or I mean, listen, we said we wouldn't necessarily delve back into Saudi again until the next event, unless it became newsworthy. I think this has kind of become newsworthy enough to say, look, I mean, the way they talked about Saudi on there and reflected it was the land of milk and honey. I mean, it was just a wonderful place that's great for sport, and that's it. There was no suggestion that there was a dark side to Saudi Arabia, which there clearly is. And the decision to go there is immensely controversial in sport. I mean, we saw none of that whatsoever. But in terms of how it reflected snooker, well, I mean, to me, it looked like the boxing and darts show. I mean, mostly boxing. I mean, it made boxing look glitzy, glamorous, exciting, which it is, actually. That sport is all those things. It made darts look big time, relevant, successful, even bigger at the moment with the Luke Littler effect. And it did none of those things for snooker almost. Maybe not none, next to none. I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't think it got off to a bad start. In fact, I texted you as much. I said, well, I went to Brentwood last week and I detected an awful lot of disappointment around the place about the documentary. And at first I thought, well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I'm no fan of the Saudi venture, and I thought it made Saudi quite exciting in that first episode. But then the second episode went to Brentwood for the English Open. And I mean, look, I mean, you can't help a rogue pigeon, Phil, can you? I mean, those rascals will do what they want. Where's the pigeon going? But I don't know. I suppose in some ways it added to the sort of. It felt like snooker didn't get a lot of luck in that documentary. I will say that we got the lights going out in Saudi. I'll come to that in a moment. But I mean, no one can help a rogue pigeon. But I suppose it added to a little bit of a feeling of almost a bit of a no can do attitude, a little bit. Maybe, I don't know. And certainly wasn't dynamic. It certainly wasn't dynamic and exciting like those other sports were. And Eddie Hearn didn't seem like he even wanted to go to Brentwood. It felt like, oh, Barry's not. Was that when Barry wasn't well or was away? He might have been one or t'other. Wasn't well, I think.
He certainly instructed Eddie to go there rather
It's
than
like,
it was Eddie
yeah,
invited him to go there.
you've got to go there. You've got to go there. And oh, it's okay. It's down the road. I can see why they're focused on Brentwood. Not, it's quite as stupid as I look. The company's there. The tournament's there. Of course, that's a natural thing. It's 5 minutes away from where their base is. But I just thought it didn't make it look great. I'm never convinced that Eddie Hearn knows any other snooker players apart from Ronnie O'Sullivan. Now, someone pointed out on social media, which I think is a fair point, actually, that Eddie's never pretended to be a massive snooker fan. So in that sense, he was at least being authentic, in that specific part. He wasn't coming on going, well, I quite like snooker, I like this and that. He wasn't. He came across as what he said. To me, whenever he's talking about other players, like they went back to Saudi, but it focused on the lights going out, another negative. And it's always like, oh, this geezer or this guy, this bloke. Whenever he's talking about anyone else that's not Ronnie. And yeah, I said to you off the air, why didn't we see the Crucible, snooker's biggest event? Or at least, if that's not asking for too much, why not Ali Pali? Keep the cameras there. It follows up We had a great section on the World Darts Championship, and what a great event that is. But we didn't see snooker's biggest event in the Crucible, or now you'd argue either its second or its third biggest event at the Masters at the same venue, which is a great advert for the sport. To me, we saw none of the things that make snooker a great advert, and all the sort of things that don't. Back to you.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true. It's hard to say whether I would say it was bad or for snooker or not. I think if you analyze it and compare it like we're doing now, compare it to the love the other sports were given, then it would seem bad. I think if you were just a casual viewer that flicked it on, which is the sort of the point of these Netflix things, to bring in as many people who'd never be interested in these things as possible. I think the average person, their view of snooker wouldn't be changed at all, which just makes it an entire waste, doesn't it? Like, um, the odd person who, if they didn't know who Ronnie O'Sullivan was, might find him a bit more interesting because they that first episode, like you spoke about, um, was sort of it was about Ronnie more than it was about snooker. Really, it was bigging him up as just the most important person in the sport. Um, but really, no one else got a mention. Uh, which I found odd because I mean I don't know who's making the decisions here, but but it's no surprise to anyone that boxing is glitzy and glamorous and looks as it did in that. If Matchroom wanted to use this potentially to sort of boost snooker up a bit, it has not achieved that in any way. Yeah, I think it would just, as I say, anyone sort of watching this and who didn't know much about snooker still doesn't know much about snooker. Certainly unlikely to turn it on if it's on another channel at some point. They might, if see Ronnie's play, might do that, but I don't think snooker's had a problem getting people to watch Ronnie O'Sullivan over the years. So yeah, it felt like a big wasted opportunity from snooker's point of view. Um, and we were saying this before. I think we both want to make this point. Like the stars of the show really were the Matchroom guys, weren't they? Rather than the athletes, obviously Eddie and Barry, but also Emily Fraser, Frank Smith on the boxing, Matt Porter at the darts. I don't think he really wants to be front and center like Eddie is, but they gave him quite a lot of airtime talking about the darts. And Steve Dawson on the chairman of World Snooker Tour wasn't it at all until I think he had like a 10-second cameo in the last 5 minutes of the last episode. And that almost made it worse than not being in it at all because it was just like, oh, who's this guy? Oh, he's in charge of the snooker. Why haven't we heard from him? Don't know. No one's mentioned it. It's just
Yeah.
like, why isn't he just on there as much as all those other guys I've just mentioned promoting the sport? Which, yeah, again, just seemed like such a waste for snooker.
Yeah, it made me think, well, where, where's the where's the dynamic person running the snooker part of the operation? Almost. And you sort of think, well, that's a bit demanding. Well, why is it demanding saying that when there seems to be one for every other part? Frank Smith, as you mentioned, charismatic guy. Don't know much about him myself, but learnt a fair bit. Looked the part to me in every way. He's sort of very integral to their boxing side. I thought Matthew Porter came over brilliantly, by the way.
Mm.
Came over as a cracking guy to me. He again talking about how successful darts is. Again, I thought there was a humility about him, which humility wasn't always a word that you'd associate necessarily with the Hearns. And good luck to them. Why should they be? They've got a lot to be show offy about, actually, in fairness to them. But I thought Matt Porter came over brilliantly, and obviously darts is he was sort of saying, I just have to turn up now, and it's such a sort of smooth operation. And okay, you could say that his timing's been good, in the sense that darts have become this absolute phenomenon, partly created by Matchroom and the success on Sky, but it's a case of keeping it ticking over. I mean, those tickets for that Ali Pali tournament, the World Championship, they sell that in about an hour. They could probably sell 3 or 4 times over. The sport is booming and all that. But we also had Emily Fraser, didn't we? The CEO of the multi-sport part of the operation. And she organises a lot of their events. And there was a lot of focus on pool. And, okay, they want to promote it. I get that. And they want it to become bigger. And they've done a lot with that. But with the exception of, I think it was the Reyes Cup they were showing, no one, for example, seemed to be at any of the other events. And that's not a big criticism. It's a growing sport. We saw Barry Hearn playing an event, didn't we? There was no one sort of there. And yet they were sort of making pool look as good as it possibly could be. And, I'd say pool came out much better than snooker. And Paul is ultimately a much lesser. Paul fans might not like this, but maybe well, how can I put it? It's a much smaller TV property historically, much smaller,
Yeah, yeah,
and yet it was sold very very well. Yeah, I mean, as you say, Steve Dawson popped up at the end. Got to say, every time I hear the name Steve Dawson mentioned, people say what a lovely guy he is, and they're absolutely right. He is a delight, Steve Dawson. He's such a nice character. He's got my favourite human quality in abundance, that man. That's gentleness. You'll never hear me say anything else. But I tell you what, I wouldn't say he fits that bill of the others in terms of someone with energy, dynamism, vision. I really worry there wasn't that kind of person there that took on that role. And surely people that can't just be what I took from it. And others must take that. Stuck out like a sore thumb for me that you had dynamic people involved with almost all their other big sports, and yet no one doing that for snooker. That's a big takeaway, isn't it? As we're saying.
yeah. Well, I think it probably was quite confusing, even for people like us who understand who the people are and how it works. It was confusing to see all these other people having so much prominence. And then if you didn't know who Steve was that was doing that, like what would you think was happening with snooker? Like would you think it was under like Emily's part of multi-sport? Or what any casual viewer would think is just nothing. That's what I mean. Like they wouldn't think about snooker at all from it. We're there thinking, oh, why isn't Steve Dawson on there? Or like, why is snooker not there? The person who's turned this on has only heard snooker mentioned once or twice. They're just not thinking about it at all after that documentary. So it's just that's what I mean. I don't think people are coming away thinking, oh, that's a terrible look for snooker, unless you really, really think about it like we are. But they're just not thinking anything. It's just a massive waste. Because yeah, like you say, it wouldn't even. I mean, the Crucible final, obviously. I don't know why you wouldn't go there, but Ali Pali, the UK final, it was quite jarring. I thought when they were talking about it's December. This is a huge time for Matchroom because we've got I can't remember which fight it was. We've got the darts
Oh
and we've
yeah.
got the Saudi snooker. And it's just like that. That would be like fifth in my list of the snooker tournaments in December. You know, the UK final was at the start of December. Like, why don't you go to York? So yeah, it was frustrating watch as a snooker fan and just a non-snooker experience if you're not a snooker fan, really.
I really didn't make that point about December. Great point. Yeah, the UK finals on in that month. The Scottish is on at that. Was the shootout that December? The one just gone. It may well have been.
Yeah, you know, it was.
I
And yeah,
mean,
and I get like that Saudi event is bigger money and will be, and they've obviously got a massive sort of thing they're trying to achieve with the Saudis. So it would be very different going to the shootout. But I mean, that would be interesting telly to go to the shootout, though, wouldn't it? I'm sure they'd get some good footage. But yeah, at least the UK final, though. That's what wound me up at that point.
yeah, we've done quite a lot of this. I know now. We come up to the hour mark of the episodes, but so we'll sort of wind it down. But I just a few people have sort of said to me, "Oh, it seemed to be that they did say at the front." I'm pretty sure that I'm not sure they said it quite like their three frontline sports, but it was something like that. That a big part of the operation is boxing, darts, and snooker.
Mm.
And this, to me, people have said it made it look like third of three. Now, to be fair in my mind, I was thinking, to be absolutely fair, we probably knew it was third of three already. But I guess the extent of which it was third of three was a bit stark, actually.
Yeah,
And I thought, okay, darts on a crescendo now, but actually, snooker's on a bit of a crescendo, really. In some ways, isn't it? And we still got Ronnie. Okay, Ronnie was in there a lot, but we've got great stars. The tickets are selling very well. And we've got issues in snooker, we really have. But at the same token, we've been big crowds at these last two tournaments we've been talking about. Loads of wonderful players, big stories, a lot of history. Oh, and one thing I meant to say I said about Olga and the Crucible. In my opinion, the biggest sporting tournament if, involved with Matchroom's auspices, if I can use that word, is the World Snooker Championship. Now, people might say, it's a World Darts Championship. I don't think it is. I think the World Snooker Championship, in terms of where it is in the pantheon of British sport and even global sport, is a bigger event than World Darts Championship. That can be challenged. I might be wrong. But it's top two, even if I am
Mm.
proved wrong on that. Bigger than any other stuff. So why didn't they show their bigger?
It's bigger than the Reyes Cup.
Bigger than the Reyes Cup, Phil. Maybe we'll leave it there. The World Snooker Championship is definitely bigger than the Reyes Cup. Well, we said a lot about the Matchroom documentary. Now, I'm fully aware that not everyone will have Netflix. Not everyone, but an awful lot of people do. We'd love to have your views on it, wouldn't we, Phil? Talking Snooker at yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. And maybe we'll take some of those next time. Talking Snooker at yahoo.com or tweet us at Talking Snooker. And I say that Matchroom documentary is available now on Netflix. I think we said enough about that for now, haven't we, Phil? And I always seem to kick off any other business. Maybe it should be your turn. I've had a good old laugh about Chris Wakelin. There must be snooker fans everywhere laughing about that interview. If you haven't seen it today, Monday, Phil's put a great line out for Chris Wakelin. And he's talking about the debate over who's the best rest player in the world, Sean Murphy or Kyron Wilson. He's not having any of it. He's called it a sausage competition.
So yeah, this was a chat I had with Chris over the summer, and it must have been it was after they'd done the draw for the British because he's playing Kyron Wilson, and I just asked him about playing Kyron Wilson, and he brought this up. It was nothing. He took no pushing to sort of get quite animated about how he thinks it's a silly debate that Kyron and Sean Murphy have about who's the best refs player in the world. And the sausage competition was his way of not swearing in because there's other ways of describing that would take some profanity, but sort of an almost like pointless macho contest to prove your machismo status. And he was just not having any of it. And I think written down, it sounds like he was sort of lost his mind and he was really angry. He wasn't really angry, but as I said, he was reasonably animated though, and he brought it up on his own. So he had thought about it before. I think he probably knows those two and he's winding them up, but it made for some great copy. So yeah, give that a read if possible. He was saying I think it was quite pathetic and they should both grow up and give the sausage competition a rest. Well, no pun intended on rest.
Okay. It's a good read. It's an interesting read, a bit maverick, I have to say. He seems to be, yeah, talking quite a lot about something that, I don't know, is it that big? I mean, I hear them sort of banter about it a bit. It's not that big in snooker, is it? Not
I
really.
guess he does get a mention a fair amount, but I suppose just everything he does gets mentioned. Anything that is in snooker that gets a mention at all gets a mention a lot, just because of the number of hours that is in commentary. So I would say whenever either of them are playing, it'll get a mention on commentary. But yeah, I didn't realize it was bothering anyone though.
Okay, no, fair enough. Well, what can I say? I commentated on the final frame of the English Open final late, well, last night, Sunday night in the UK, but of course it went into Monday morning after midnight. That's on Radio Snooker, widely available now, including on Spotify and Spreaker. And I think if you want the full radio experience, Bluetooth it to your transistor set, however you listen. I'd love to have you for company. And a new Sporting Life column coming for me next week, focusing on the amazing rush of maximums in the first 3 months of this 25-26 season. I won't have any answers, Phil. No one's got them. I'll just be throwing up an awful lot of questions, probably more questions. I think we're going to shoot off, aren't we? Just saying, sport right now, tale of two very big and special events. One just finished and one about to get underway. Great Britain ended without a gold medal at the World Athletics Championships for the first time in more than 2 decades. The best hope for British gold would probably Olympic champion Keely Hodgkinson, but she won bronze in the women's 800 behind another British athlete, Georgia Hunter Bell, and Kenya's Lillian Odera, who took the gold. But of course, I was thinking it's a global sport, so I'm sure wherever you are, you may well have had your own highlights and your own success for your athletes from your home nation. So there's lots of terrific action to reflect on here in the UK. That highlights of that on the iPlayer and on Discovery Plus. And it is Ryder Cup week. The event takes place from Friday to Sunday at Bethpage Black, just outside New York. The United States and Europe doing battle once more. That's live here in the UK on Sky and BBC Radio, with highlights on BBC Television. And of course, Phil, loads of top snooker. just say on the way in October, we got the Xi'an Grand Prix and the Northern Ireland Open. Before that, loads more of the British Open. Square eyes again, Phil. Once again, we'll be glued to the snooker, won't we? Lots to go. Video printer. I've got it written down. That was it. Brilliant preparation to what was that old line about preparing to fail, failing to prepare?
Yeah.
Here we go. I've written it down. By the way, is there a problem with snooker.org today?
Yeah. This is maybe the first podcast ever that I've not had snooker.org up because it's not working for me. So I'm on WST, which
Oh
is actually working
no!
fine. Fair play to them.
If anyone's from snooker.org, your brilliant site, which we love, we can't get it to work today. It just keeps work. It's like 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That ludicrous. So let's go to the video printer for shall we, Phil? You know, I'm going to pass the buck because I'm a bit of a granddad. I'm seeing a few scores, but I think I know a man that'll have it up better. I can tell you, Mark Williams has won. Gary Wilson, it looks like it might still be in progress, but I'm going to go back to you. What's happening?
Yeah. Kyron Wilson beat Chris Wakeley in 4-1. Looks like he played very well.
Hmm?
Makes 105, 141, and 59 and 58. So
Bloody
nice
hell.
stuff from Kyron. Don't know how much he used the rest. We'll have to find out later.
ask Chris.
4-0 for
Ask Chris Wakelin. He loves it.
4-0 for Judd over Aaron Hill, which I watched. That's just popped up on the screen. 96% pot success rate from Judd Trump. Reasonably close first frame, then 103, 101, and 60. So strong start from the world number one. Gary Wilson's 3-1 up on Vafai, and Zhou Yuelong's 2-1 up on Hayden Hinnay. So yeah, strong start from Kyron and Judd, which is something we've been very used to saying in the recent years.
Yes, and I mean, could have been a potential banana skin for that Judd, but he made light work of that. So yeah,
He was
fascinating.
saying beforehand, I saw his interview with Abby, and he was saying what a tough first opening draw it was. He knew the form Hill's been on. He lost his only game with him before, so I think she said, "Are you confident?" And he said, "Well, we'll see how this goes, but he will be after that."
Yeah, it's 1-1 in their head-to-heads now. Because, as you say, you mentioned that early previous meeting that Aaron won. Loads more of the British Open. Enjoy it, everybody. Live here in the UK on ITV. And, of course, just to say, and I see some confusion elsewhere, and I know that sometimes happens. I'm not sure that the broadcasting arrangements are necessarily to the liking of some people for this event, but the best way, he says, passing the buck, is to go to WST. They have got the information, haven't they? And I know WST Play will come into play for a lot of people without those specific TV arrangements. We are told you can see live snooker wherever you are in the world now. That's the vow, isn't it? And
Yeah,
we haven't got them to sign it in blood, but they told us, haven't they? So and we trust them.
yeah. No, I think it is true. I think there are some frustrations about sort of other tables and stuff. I know I keep reading that Ireland is missing out on things, which is a great shame. But yeah, you can see some of it wherever you are. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, my friend Daniel, the Green Bay, is one of the great judges of the game. I mean, they are all tearing their hair out in Ireland. Genuinely, they never seem to have what they need.
Mm.
I don't think they've got the other ITV table this week. They have issues with getting hold of some of the tables on Discovery, and it's a genuine problem actually. So I do have sympathy for Irish snooker fans. You think of all the places, really, because Ireland has such an immense love of snooker. That's one of the first places that should have live coverage of everything. But they often seem to slip through the nets. We are aware of that, and sorry to hear it. But should we go and say enjoy? I salute you and say enjoy the rest of the tournament, sir, and see you next time on Talking Snooker.
Yes, we absolutely will. And I will say that I've been doing this from a different room, as Nick mentioned earlier, with both my dogs sat behind me, and one of them has been snoring quite loudly throughout it. So if you heard a
Right.
snoring sound, neither of us dropped off at any point. It was just my nice boy Lockie here. But he's been sound asleep for a lot of it. But yeah, I'll be back in my normal room next week, so no snoring there. But thanks for listening, as always. Speak to you soon.
I hope we don't send any of our other listeners to sleep, Phil Haig. God forbid that would ever happen. But yeah, he does look like a lovely boy, actually. And it gives me the chance to mention Animal Magic with Johnny Morris. So finish on a note there. I don't think that's it on the air. That's a note for the teenagers. Thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. See you next time when we'll review the British Open. And please do enjoy, as I know you will, the rest of the tournament. And for now, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Cheerio.